An angel of the church in Smyrna write, these things saith the first and the last, which was dead and is alive. I know thy works, and tribulation and poverty, but thou art rich. And I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. Fear none of those things which thou shalt suffer. Behold, the devil shall cast some of you into prison, that ye may be tried, and that ye shall have tribulation 10 days. Be thou faithful unto death, and I will give thee a crown of life. He that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit saith unto the churches. He that overcometh shall not be hurt of the second death. I want to talk about just for a little while the testimony of a tried saint. The testimony of a tried saint. I'm well aware, Dr. Foster, my Midwest Region Vice President, good to see you. I'm well aware, Dr. Mitchell, that this particular book is often shunned and avoided. It's untouched, it's unopened, it's unbothered, simply because the contents of this pericope is very, very disturbing. People often rush past this particular book, even though it's the end, simply because the language and the verbiage and the particular commentary has some graphic details that may be alarming. It causes apprehension simply because the horrific details of certain characters in this particular narrative causes some anxiety. But however, my brothers and sisters, the message tonight is simple. And hopefully tonight I can help to ease the tension of those who may approach Revelation. The message is simple. The message is plain. May I share it with you? The message of Revelation simply says that Jesus wins and the devil loses. I know that's not something that's deep and seemingly shallow, but I want to let those of us who are struggling with the adversities of life, who are dealing with the vicissitudes of life, who are dealing with calamity, peril, and perplexity, I want you to know that God has already given you the future revelation of where you shall be seated and how you shall overcome. I came to let you know that you don't have to be apprehensive about life, because in the end, Jesus wins and the devil loses. You can praise better, you can worship better, you can dance better, you can sleep better when you know that God has already given the victory to the people of God. He's already given the victory to those who trust in him, and there's no reason for you to be discouraged. There's no reason for you to be dismayed, because we are not fighting for victory, but we are fighting from victory. Is there anybody here that can go back to your various places with the attitude of gratitude and knowing that God has already fixed it? God has already taken care of whatever you have to face. And in our text, I'm almost through, we discover that John the Revelator gets a word from the Lord in the midst of his own precarious predicament, and the word came to John to tell this church not to condemn but to commend. that though you have been faced with trouble, though you have been faced with trial, don't you know it's good to know that in the midst of adversity, Jesus will always send a word, and not only will he send a word, but he'll show up. I wish y'all stopped looking at me like that in that tone of voice. Is there anybody beside me that knows that the only way you got through the pandemic is because the Lord sent his word, and his word is what equipped, his word is what empowered, his word is what edified. All I need is a word. What does this word say, Dr. Cuffin? I'm almost through. John gets this word from Jesus to tell this church who had been persecuted, Dr. Flynn, and who had been going through different dilemmas. He said, I know your works and I see your testimony. First thing I want to tell you tonight, and I'm getting out your way, is that when you have a testimony that has been tried by fire, first of all, you'll discover that your perfume is extracted by suffering. Yeah, your perfume. Where is that in the text? He said, unto the church, Dr. May, this word, Smyrna, literally is where we get our word for myrrh. Dr. Mitchell, myrrh is that resin, it's that fragrance, it's that oil that's a precious and high commodity, and the only way you can get myrrh is that it has to be taken from what is called a commiphera tree. And the only way that you can get this precious ointment is that somebody has to come and cut the tree in order to bleed the tree in order to extract the resin. There's a oil in the commiphera tree called myrrh that's highly aromatic. It's popular. It's something that people want and desire, but the only way you can get it is somebody has to cut the tree. And the reason why Jesus said you have a testimony is because I smell the fragrance of your faithfulness that has been extracted by trouble. And the only way you can get fragrant favor and fragrant praise is when you learn how to let life lacerate you to the point that God can extract some stuff. I wish I had a witness in here tonight. The problem I discovered, Dr. White, is that people want to be fragrant, but they don't want to go through no cuts. Yeah. You want to go back to your church and everything be peaches and cream, but let me tell you, you can't get no value until you've been dealing with some visceral moments. And is there anybody beside me that can testify that the cuts did not corrupt me, but the cuts conditioned me? The cuts made me better. You can tell a fragrant preacher because they've been cut. You can tell those who got a fragrant praise because you ain't got to pump them, you ain't got to prime them, you ain't got to push them. But when you've been cut, you can say, I was glad when they said. Let me hurry on. Look at somebody, tell them I've been cut. But then not only do we see his perfume extracted, but Jesus expresses his own portfolio. He says, help me, Holy Ghost. These things saith the first and the last. I know your works. Notice, he said, the first and the last, which was dead and alive. Let me rush through that as my cut across the field. Don't let me. He said, the first and the last, he who was dead. He gives us his portfolio by helping us to understand that he goes to show us what he did in the past, how he's working in the present, and then Dr. Glenn, how he works in the future. In antiquity, he was the creator of the universe. In humanity, he was our propitiation. in the future, eternity, he has already reserved our place. He says, check my resume so that when you deal with trouble, you can remind yourself that if I did it in antiquity, I can do it in your present. And if I did it in your present, I can do it in your future. Y'all still ain't feeling me here. Sometimes you need to go in the faith file and remember it was him that took the world and baptized it in a liquid mist through the stars across the bosom of the deep like diamonds on black velvet, put the sun around the earth like a gold medallion, screwed the moon in the socket of the earth, and it's never lost its glow. If he did it with that, don't you know he can handle your situation? Look at somebody, tell him if he did it before, he'll do it. Let me hurry on. He said, I know your works. If I had enough time, I tell you, he tells them, you've been prosperous, even in exiguous times. Notice what he said. He said, I know your poverty, thlipsis, tribulation, been squeezed. But parenthetically, he says, you're rich. Yeah, he said, you've been broken by the government. They done shut down the resources, but still you have a source of income. Which means that when things are exiguous, empty, futile, scant, meager, and less, he says, you ain't got to worry about the resources as long as you got the source. The problem with some of us is we put our trust in what we have rather than looking at who we have. And as long as we got him, they may shut a door, but don't you know that's when God will open up the window of heaven and pour you out a blessing. I didn't held you too long. Well, he said, fear none of those things. C sharp if you can. I am saying, fear none of those things which thou shalt suffer. And behold, they will cast you into prison. And he said that you may be tried 10 days. But I heard him saying, be thou faithful, not until death. Yeah, but I heard him say, be faithful unto death. Yeah, we mean that you gotta be committed regardless of your calendar season. Jesus. Yeah, you gotta be committed even when things don't go your way. Can I get a witness? Too many of God's people only show up when they feel like it. Ain't God all right? But I wish I can find some witnesses in here that can testify and say, I'm on the battlefield from my Lord. Yeah, I promised him that I would serve him until I die. Ain't God all right? I heard Jesus. I heard him say, you only will do it for 10 days. Ain't God all right with letting me know that your problems have an expiration date? Ain't God all right? Look at your neighbor. I said, look at your neighbor. I'm sorry. Look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, it ain't gonna last long. Ain't God all right? It won't last long. How do you know it, Hanson? Just look at Jesus. He had a week to deal with a passion. Ain't God all right? But it only lasted for 3 days. Ain't God all right? And if you hold on, just give them a 3-day weekend. Ain't God all right? I'm done now. Thank you, darling. One Friday, can I get in there? One Friday, he died. He died. Didn't he die? But he didn't stay there. Let him nail your hand. Let him nail your feet. But I guarantee that he works well on the weekend. I wish y'all to help me in your Baptist conviction. Help me. Help me. Help me. Help me. Help me say all night Friday. He stayed right there all day Saturday. I done fooled around and got happy. He stayed right there. I thought y'all was gonna help me. Can y'all help me? Help me say it one time. I can't hear nobody. He got up. He got up. All power in his hand. Ain't he all right? Do you got a testimony? Do you know he got power? Say yeah. He got power. My. There may